I often think live jazz is a good reflection of the world that we live in. When you see a live jazz band, you'll see a group of musicians doing entirely different things. It's often like jazz is thrown together with these different rhythms and melodies knocking into each other, yet there's this unity to it all. The band and the whole audience are totally absorbed in one moment. Our world is exactly the same. There are these shared moments in life where everyone is forced to stand in a collective despite our differences. There are few things that everyone shares in. People's lives are increasingly separate and our societies are divided, but there are still commonalities between us. Times of immense joy and desperate sadness, where the whole world comes together and stands in one interval of feeling. I think almost all of us would agree that we live in a world that has lots of pain in it. You don't have to go looking for it. You'd find enough suffering in one narrow London lane to prove it. But if that's not enough, we see things every day that show us that the world isn't the way that it should be. Hundreds of thousands of people forced to flee their homes because of war. People sleeping on the streets in one of the richest countries in the world. Acts of war and terror at home and abroad. And it's not just in the big picture. We all know pain in our own lives. Relationships break down, our dreams often don't come true, people who we love die. We belong to a suffering collective, and yet we are so distinctive in our responses to it. We set up mechanisms to cope. Some of us medicate our painful realities. We pretend it's not happening and fill our helpless voids with fun and stuff. Others play the blame game, levying brokenness on past mistakes and evil people who perpetuate all the problems that we see. The Stoics say that pain is illusion, and the religious say it's a test from God, but they all fall short of reconciling pain and love. When I tell people that I believe in Jesus, the first question they usually ask me is, how could I believe in a God that allows pain and suffering? The question sits in a broader cosmological context, but it reveals an important chasm that exists in our minds between a perfect, loving God and a hurting, broken world. Surely if one existed, the other couldn't, because they contradict. Yet Jesus steps into the middle of this gap. His life is the demonstration of the beauty and the perfection of God, kissing this broken, bleeding world. Jesus lived his life to bring healing to hurting people. There isn't one page of the Gospels that doesn't tell the story of a man moving towards outcast and oppressed people. Those that were kicked out of cities because of their diseases, Jesus spent time with them and healed them. The poor, those that were completely at the end of themselves, Jesus provided a hope and a way out. Those that were humiliated by religious leaders because of their questionable pastimes were welcomed with love and friendship. Jesus wept when his friends died. He bled when he was crucified. Somehow the chasm was bridged. God reconciled pain and suffering with love and hope. And somehow the world seems to have forgotten and ignored this outstanding achievement. The church has painted Jesus beige and made him accessible only by the nice, together humans that live inside churches. They thought that the broken lives of the real world would make their ministries messy, but this was never how Jesus lived. Jesus lived for the people who got it wrong, who never had a chance. He lived for the hopeless and the hurting. He was the God that wept. That's why I wrote the play, to set things straight, and I called it Steel Suffering, and I based it around jazz music, to line up a collective of 5 distinctive characters who have their own mechanisms for reconciling pain and hope, and for one of those characters to share the message that Jesus has for all the pain in the world.